feel like there's this thing you're supposed to do, but you don't know how to do it, and it's so miserable that it leads a lot of people to severe depression and suicide. So I told you I had shingles when I was 34 because I was in that situation. I was incredibly unhappy. I couldn't figure it out. I knew I was supposed to be doing this other thing. But I found myself 5 years, almost to the date, walking into my condo in Shaker Square, and I go to put my key in the door, and there's someone behind me. I have a dear friend in this room who will probably remember this well. Someone was behind me. And I looked at this man, and I said, "Are you going in?" And then he pulled a gun on my belly. And I dropped to the ground, and then I looked up, and the gun was in my head. And I said, "Please, just don't kill me, just don't hurt me." And you just want my, and in that moment, I said, "You know what, God, I've had a good life. I've been very blessed. But if you let me live, I promise you I will go after my purpose. I'll figure it out." He took my purse, and he ran away. It was not even a couple of months later that someone from high school whom I hadn't seen in 20 years found me on Facebook and said, "You're always so positive. Have you seen this?" And it was all about positive psychology in the University of Pennsylvania. So here's what else I learned about purpose. When we let it go, and we commit to it in a different way, which means we commit to it in our heart and we commit to it in our soul, then things start coming into our lives. And here's a couple recommendations of how I would commit. Number one, next time someone asks you at a cocktail party or a networking party like this, what do you do? If you aren't in the job that you want, don't talk about the job you have. Talk about what you're working toward. I have a client who is a ballroom dance instructor, but she's trying to work in museums. So she doesn't say anymore, "I'm a ballroom dance instructor." She says, "Oh, I'm getting into museum work." Do you know now that she's had 3 interviews simply because she told people what she wants to do instead of what she is doing? You've got to commit to it. 2, you've got to start filling your life with hope. According to C.R. Snyder, which is, may he rest in peace, a wonderful researcher of positive psychology, hope is literally, scientifically, a fuel that creates agency and pathways. Hope, hope, hope. And what I do is future gratitude. You think a few years ahead, and you say, "I'm so grateful for that thing that happened that hasn't yet happened." So we have to commit to it in a different way. So these are just a couple of tools about purpose, because I don't have time to go into a whole bunch, right? But I hope what you walked away with is A, purpose matters. B, it's already within you. C, you just got to start uncovering it and finding that joy within. And that's how we get there. And then we let it go, and we let the process start working. So I think I have probably 2 minutes for questions, but I do appreciate your time together. I have 5 minutes for questions. 5. So I do appreciate your time. Are there any questions?
Have you ever written a book?
Thank you for asking. I am in the process of writing a book. My agent at the table here probably would like me to be done with it a little bit earlier. So I'm working on a book, and I will be launching a website very soon called purposegirl.com, where you can read my daily thoughts and musings and research and whatnot on purpose, and then a book will be soon forthcoming. Thank you for asking. And if somehow I could get when it is launching, Liz will let the Positive Thinkers Network know.
Sure.
Yes, Toshiba Bob.
You, during your conversation, brought up some things that I kind of work with. I call them positive hooks.
Positive hooks.
When I'm in a negative mode or something happens, it's not the way I like things flow.
Yeah.
I remember things that really created blissfulness stages in my life.
Yeah.
One of them was my grandmother, who was 70 years old when I was born. I still remember the diminutive little old lady baking hot chocolate chip cookies with milk. And I'm 6 years old and coming into the house and to visualize the kitchen and things like that. What a beautiful thought. And immediately all that negative stuff goes away.
Goes away. Yeah.
Positive hook.
It's a great example, and I love that word, a positive hook. So it's remembering something that's really wonderful that can take us away. And what I like to work with people on, thank you for that comment, what I like to work with people on is the way we get rid of negativity, there's both the emotional and the cognitive, because there's a lot of really wonderful ways to cognitively work with your negative thoughts. Albert Ellis's work and a lot of work has come out of M. Beck and Seligman. I mean, a lot of work has come out on how to change your negative thinking. And what I find is you have to partner that also with the heart and a lot of self-compassion work, which is something I've gotten really interested in lately, is this concept of self-compassion, because we can't always just change our thoughts. Sometimes that feeling is ingrained in our bones. And so what I've started working with lately is self-compassion and getting to that place where I really came to know and I can feel that little girl inside me. Because whenever we have a bad thought, it's usually just, there's some untouched part of us that's crying out. So how do I wrap my arms around little Carin and work with that? So I usually like to work with clients and say it's head, it's heart, it's both. Any other questions? For me, yes, sir, in Beth.
I'm not sure that this may be a repetition, but things happen in our lives, and we don't feel good. We get upset, we're sad, whatever. So I always get confused with allowing myself to validate my feelings. I don't want to deny it, but at the same time, I don't want to leave it too long.
Thank you for asking that question. I don't know if everyone heard it, but where's that line basically between, I want to honor my feelings, because not everything feels good and rosy, right? I want to honor my feelings, but I don't want to stay there too long. One of the criticisms of positive psychology has been that we're just happyology, and that, we are all, I love the smiley faces, but that we're just about smiley faces and it doesn't matter, and just be happy. That's not it at all. That's not it at all. So what I work with people on, and I completely agree with you, is you do need to be in that place. You need to honor the difficulty and the fear and the sadness, and that's why I wrap my arms around the little girl that's hurt, and I stay with her. Or when something horrible is happening, like a loved one is sick, or work-related, or whatever, you need to feel, it's okay, getting to the point where you say, you know what, and this is all about self-awareness. I've mourned this one, or I've been here now, and getting to a point where you know yourself well enough to know when you're going to that place of rumination. So one of the things we know, women are twice as depressed as men, and there are many reasons that psychologists think that this might be, and one of the main theories that people have is that women ruminate. So Liz and I'll get together and talk for hours. Usually it's pretty positive, but we can sometimes, or one of my best friend's husbands is in the room, and she and I could go off for, I don't know, a couple of hours on ruminating about some bad thing that happened. So there's a little bit of that that's healthy, and then we can overtalk ourselves to death. And you have to know when that line is. So a client of mine recently had a breakup, and I was like, take this week, feel sad, sit in your pajamas, eat ice cream in bed, do all that stuff you have to do, and then let's talk in a week. And then in a week, all right, let's start to talk about what did you learn from the relationship? What was good about it? What would you like to take into the next relationship? That's the other piece that we know from science, is that redemptive, when we can find the lesson from things, or we can have something come out of it, it's usually a little healthier for us too.
One more.
Catherine, I'm sorry.
One of the things that I have discovered in my life, and I want to know if you agree, is we all have things that happen to us that are bad, and one way that I control my thought is to not let myself think things like, could life get any worse? When it rains, it pours. Oh my God, here we go again, which is kind of where people fall. When that tragedy happens in their life, they let those thoughts go to, woe is me, kind of life just sucks.
Yeah.
Which it's okay to feel that sort of fear of, what do I do now? This hurts, I'm in pain. You just have to be conscious that you're not thinking thoughts like, of course this happened to me. All these bad things happen to me. Those are the things I feel you need to guard against.
I completely agree with you, Catherine. The comment was really to guard against going too far in one direction, that it's black and it's white, and now my life is doomed. So any of you who know about positive psychology, and I know you've studied with him before, the father of positive psychology is Marty Seligman, Dr. Marty Seligman, and my favorite book that he's written is from 20 plus years ago, called Learn Optimism. And the way that positive psychology actually got started was this idea, looking at why so many of us, it began with dogs, so I won't even get into that, but really this idea that about 2/3 of us go to the negative first. And that's because of that reptilian brain down there. So 2/3 of us go to the negative first. Problem is, when we stay there, and what he found is that basically we've learned to be helpless. When we get beat up too many times, we've learned there's nothing I can do in this situation. And so the question that he started asking was, well, what about the other third? Why do they survive? Why are they okay? And what he found was that they're optimistic, right? Which means when a bad situation happens, pessimistic means, do you see an adverse event as permanent, pervasive, and personal? Permanent, my life is over, right? or permanent. So you lose your job. Permanent, I'll never find another job. Pervasive, now my life is over, my wife's gonna leave me, my kids are doomed, da 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 da, I'm gonna lose my mortgage. It's always me, right? And personal it's always me, I'm a bad, da 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 da. What he found is people who are optimistic are able to say, it was one time, it was temporary, and it's not necessarily my fault. I can learn from this, but not necessarily my fault. And so he wrote that book, and I would recommend it to anyone. Learned Optimism, teaching us, the other 2/3, myself included, who are pessimistic thinkers, teaching us how to become optimists, how to think differently. So it's about all the time I have. I will stay here for a few questions, anyone who just wants to walk up. But thank you again. Thank you for being here.